If you are a Canadian citizen and you are preparing to apply for a TN visa or TN status at a U.S. port of entry or through pre-flight inspection, there are some things you should keep in mind for that TN visa interview process. And the recommendations I'm about to give are based on years of experience assisting individuals obtain TN status, also through experience actually being present at the port of entry during these interviews when CBP used to allow us as attorneys to represent our clients at ports of entry. They no longer allow that, but the same principles apply. And there's a lot that was learned during my experience representing clients at the port of entry during these interview processes. Now, the first thing that I tell individuals before they go to apply for a TN visa is that if you've ever entered the United States for any purpose as a visitor, it's a similar process where you're going to present yourself at pre-flight inspection or you're going to present yourself at the border. The difference this time is they're going to ask you what is the purpose of your entry to the United States. At that point, you will indicate that you are applying for TN status, that you want to obtain a TN visa to work in the United States. The first thing that officer is going to do is they are going to obtain your passport, and then they are going to run that passport through the system. With that passport, they're going to pull up all of your information that they have on you. This is the first step and often the most important step in the entire process. What that border officer will do is then confirm the details and the facts with you that they already have on file. They know the answers to these questions. They have them in the system. U.S. and Canada share documents, share records, both immigration as well as criminal. They share records about your travel history, so on and so forth with the United States and Canada. They will typically start by confirming what is your name, what is your birth date, where were you born, have you ever worked or lived in the United States, when was your last entry to the United States, have you ever been arrested. They know the answers to all these questions. And the reason they're asking you these questions is not only to confirm your identity, but also to confirm how you answer questions truthfully. Hopefully you're answering these questions truthfully because the officer has the answers to them. And through the way you answer these questions, these initial questions, they will then judge your answers throughout the rest of the interview process against how you answered those questions truthfully to determine whether or not you are attempting to deceive them throughout the rest of your application. So it's very important to be truthful throughout the entire application process. Number two, they will then typically ask you for your TN application or your offer of employment or support letter from your employer. Then they will verify the details on that offer letter. Is it from a U.S. entity, a U.S. employer, or a U.S. client? Is the offer on U.S. letterhead? And does that offer contain all of the necessary details in order to appraise the officer of the offer in the United States for them to make a determination on whether or not this offer would qualify for potential TN visa. So that offer must be for an occupation. It's listed on the occupations list. It must also indicate the time of intended employment in the United States. When do they need you to start? And for a duration. So a TN can be approved for either 1 day up to 3 years at a time. It also must indicate in detail what are your duties that you expect to perform in the United States. And it should indicate this is for a temporary employment, as well as how much are you going to be paid. And that wage must be consistent with what other professionals in your area of intended employment would also be paid. The next thing they're going to verify is if you have the necessary qualifications in order to qualify you to perform the services under that occupation in the United States. In other words, do you have the necessary degree? If it's a 4-year degree, do you have a 4-year degree? If it's a diploma in experience, do you have the diploma in the experience? With experience, it's important to note that that experience can only be demonstrated through former employer letters. A resume is not proof of experience for TN visa purposes. Also, when you're presenting degrees, diplomas, certificates, understand the education requirements are for North America. So your degree education must be equivalent to U.S. Canadian or Mexican degrees in North America. So if you were educated outside of North America, make sure you have the proper degree evaluations to support your qualifications. The next thing is your intent. Keep in mind, a TN is temporary. Your purpose for entry to the United States cannot be for a permanent nature. It cannot be for permanent employment, as people put it. You are coming just for this job offer, just for this temporary time period. Your intentions in the future haven't been determined yet. You will make that decision when that time comes. But right now, your only purpose is for this job, and who knows what the future might hold for you. The next is oftentimes at pre-flight inspection or through a port of entry, even though you have handed over your offer letter and your application materials to the officer, they may provide you a separate piece of paper to have you write down the details of your position. Be prepared to do that. And this is a common practice at ports of entry and pre-flight inspection to have the applicant independently write down their duties as they expect them to be in the United States. Now, this doesn't have to be boilerplate what is in your support or offer letter, but it should be consistent, and it should also be consistent with the occupation you're applying under. Also, they sometimes ask you to write down a point of contact and a phone number so that they can verify details of your employment by calling your employer. So make sure before you apply, you have someone at the employer who is going to be able to confirm the details of your employment. Final thing, questions. A border officer can ask you whatever questions that they deem necessary in order to determine whether or not you're qualified for TN status. There is no set list of questions that anyone can provide you that a border officer is guaranteed going to ask. The only advice we can give is answer those questions, yes, no, when appropriate. If they ask a direct question, give a direct answer. Don't dance around the question. And again, be truthful. If you are qualified, if your paperwork is in order and demonstrates your qualifications and that the occupation that you're requesting to work in the United States is a TN occupation for a U.S. employer and all of the facts check out, then you should be fine. If you have questions about the TN interview or application process or need assistance with applying for a TN visa at a U.S. port of entry or through pre-flight inspection, we have decades of experience doing this. Give us a call, shoot us an email. We'd be glad to help you out.